Money, a Love Story, and I'm here with my dear friend Deb Kern, Dr. Deb Kern, and we're talking about money love stories. As part of the launch of my book, I wanted to invite some people who I know and love and respect to tell their own money love story, because money is such a taboo topic, and it's something that I think if more of us speak about in public, openly, like here on YouTube, in a conscious, loving way, more people will get the message that it's possible to have a conscious, loving relationship with their money. It's not that it has to be perfect, but that we can actually have these open dialogues. And so that's the purpose. And so as we're launching Money, a Love Story, that's what I'm doing. So Deb Kern is a dear, dear friend of mine. She has every degree you can imagine. She has a PhD in exercise physiology or exercise kinesiology or one of those things. What is it, Deb? One of those. Okay, great.
And she just, yeah, right.
Okay. She has an MBA, and she is like a Phoenix Rising yoga instructor, Nia Black Belt. I mean, this woman is like the perpetual student of optimal living in the human body, would you say? And then also on the spiritual realm, you know, Deb just spent 6 weeks living in Bali, and she goes on retreats, and she is just a seeker. So I really wanted, and she's a very successful businesswoman, which is cool because you don't meet that many people who are like so well versed in the spiritual realms and in the health realms and good at business and making money. So that's why I wanted to ask you about your money love story, Deb. Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome, welcome. So first off, I want to know, when you were growing up, what did you learn about money? What did you witness or experience as a child?
You know, I was put on a budget when I was 7 years old because how I grew up is this. My dad grew up in a very, I would say a poor, poor. They didn't have enough money at all through the Depression. And so at age 16, he graduated high school early. He got on a train from Texas and went all the way to New York City, typed as a typist to earn money. And then he saved up his money and came back and went to medical school, put himself through medical school, typing people's theses and doctoral dissertations. And so, all to say, very frugal, but he was very smart, and he made really good decisions. So my parents purchased a home in an area where they had a really good school system. Little did, I think, any of us really realize that this area with a really good school system was extremely wealthy. So I grew up with the mentality of frugality, and I didn't feel deprived, but frugal. But I went to school with girls, their parents would take them to New York City quarterly to look at the fashion shows to buy the next season's fashion. And my clothes came from Sears. And so I learned pretty young that my desires and what I saw around me I couldn't necessarily have. And my parents had to put me on a clothing budget age 7. So that because I wanted to spend, you know, I wanted new clothes every season too, just like everyone else. So I learned how to budget. I learned how to have, I would have huge desires. I would get that Sears catalog. Sears and Roebuck had this big catalog we'd get. And I'd go through every page and I would want so many things. And I would then, here was my strategy. I would dog ear the ones I wanted. And then I would put it away. And then I would look at it the next week and I would go through it and I would undog ear. In other words, I'd be like, I could live without that. And when I got down to the ones I could afford, I would get them. That was how I grew up.
That's very interesting. So tell me, as you went and got your PhD and then your MBA, and you were out there teaching, you know, hundreds of people in fitness classes. Deb was really big in the fitness industry, well, still is, but in a different way in the 80s. And tell me how that frugality and having to make those decisions affected you as you were then in charge of your own money as a career woman.
It just became kind of how I lived. Like when I got my credit card, I would pay it off. I had in my mind, because I started so young paying attention to how much was available, I didn't necessarily have to write things down to know, you know, what was going on. I could just keep track of it. So it really wasn't much of an issue. It became an issue later, however. Just
okay. Now tell me how it became an issue later.
Well, you know, it's interesting we're talking because I haven't thought that far back in a long time. Because where I started to, in marriage, I started to go unconscious. It's really interesting, Kate. As much as you and I've talked about this subject, I've never put these two things together.
That's why we have to talk about it.
That's why we're doing this. So as soon as I got married, I just would go unconscious on money. Really. And so I really didn't pay as much attention. I just figured it's all still working because I'm still putting in. But, when in marriage and with having children, there's so many more things. And I didn't have and have had to learn how to have, but I didn't have the same discipline with children things like private schools or car seats or the things that I felt we needed. I didn't do the dog ear technique and then undog ear them a week later. I just did it because somehow I went unconscious. There are two incomes coming in. It's going to work out somehow magically. Right. Now, so we had some tough times.
Before we started talking, before we started recording,
right?
You were talking about some similarities and interesting insight between how you used to teach weight management and kind of money. So can you talk about that, and it might relate to maybe some of those challenges you had?
Yes, absolutely. Well, in the 80s, I ran the weight management department of a hospital in Arlington, Virginia, and we taught a system where we would teach the patients based on their height and the sex and age, how many calories a day their body needed to stay alive. And then, so that was their bank account. That's how much they had to, quote, spend. And then they could earn more to spend by exercising. So it was all how much you had each day. And our philosophy was you need to know how much you have in the bank in order to know how much you can spend every day. And then we also taught them the price tag of all items. Like we taught them how to weigh and measure their food so that they would know about how many calories something cost. So I think pretty good philosophy actually, because it is true. If you went to a store and nothing had price tags on it, and you had a credit card and you didn't know how much you had to spend, do you think you would overspend? Yes, you would.
Yeah.
So that's how we taught it. And I think it's still valid. I mean, I think that way of understanding things is still valid. However, there's a bigger piece that we didn't address, which is a larger connection to spirit and the realm of the unseen where it's not linear, where abundance is, and right desires. When we get in alignment, it's so interesting. When a desire may seem too big for you, then you would shut yourself down. But in my own case, I realized that sometimes I have really huge desires, and actually they are in alignment. If I bring myself into that alignment spiritually, I manifest what it takes to create those desires. So if I stay in the small mind of simply saying, oh, that desire is too big, I don't have the money in the account, but instead say, there's a way, I trust, because this desire is in me so strongly and I can see it so fully how it will not only serve me but the world, that when I relax into it, then my mind can imagine and then I put action to it, creating the larger. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And there's a resourcefulness in that.
Yes, exactly.
I really want people listening in to know that manifesting is not about doing nothing. Manifesting is actually tapping into when Deb says, that desire is not too big for me just because I don't have the money in my bank account. Part of the manifestation process is opening up to what's possible and how can I work with the universe? What action steps can I take? And also how can I receive to make it so? Right? Okay, cool. I love that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have an example of a time when you felt that your desire was too big and instead of shutting it down, you were able to manifest that?
Oh, I would say yes. Today.
Oh, great.
I really have this. I want to have a center where gather, where just on the spur of the moment I could have a gathering, open the space for, say, showing a film or holding a fundraiser or hosting a singer-songwriter. And I always I thought that was too big. I mean, it's too much overhead. I crunched the numbers. It's not possible. I've run the numbers every which way. It's not possible. And yet that desire kept being there, the desire to have a space that could be open to other people, big enough that they could even stay in it. I thought it meant I would have a retreat center or something like that. Random, it's not possible. It's not possible. And it stayed with us. And that where I live now is and you've seen where I live now, is a home that seemed impossible. It is impossible. I'm not sure how come I even live here. It's not. It doesn't make sense in the linear way. But the truth is, I live in a home that's big enough to, in 2 weekends, I'll host a concert to support a friend's music career, and we'll have 50 people here. And I have someone living with us now who's in transition because I have space for that to happen. I have space for gatherings to happen. So that's an example of just magic plus putting my feet to the pavement.
Yeah. And staying open, even if the numbers don't crunch, saying like, well, you know what, I'm still like, this desire is present. So I'm going to, see what happens there. That's really beautiful. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Cool. Now, given that we're always on this money journey and we're interacting with it every day. And I know, Deb and I work together building our USANA businesses, and she's got Prosperity Partners and then speaking and writing. And she's an author of a couple of fabulous books and all kinds of things going on. I'd love to know, what's the next growth edge for you when it comes to money or growing your business?
Well, it really has to do with the USANA business. Mm-hmm. I have, so for the listeners, this is a direct selling where we use our business building, conscious networking as a way to build business. And so that, because it's not what I was trained in, I've had to overcome in my mind, this is nursing school, MBA, health sciences, exercise science, all of that. I didn't learn exactly how to build a business. So I've treated it like something on the side. And it's become very clear to me that it is actually, it's not on the side, it's a foundation. Now, it's a foundation in a way that's different than I've ever experienced before, or how I would have imagined in any learning that I've had in the past. So now that I've seen that, recognized it's a foundation, it's a big growth edge. And I know we've talked about this, that my husband and I are going to work together. In fact, it's even how strong and powerful our words are. I used to refer to it as my business, and I just switched to our business, and the energy that I have is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm so much more excited. It's the way I work best in partnership, and so this is a growth edge for me. That's to see so something beautiful. That was a side as becoming a foundation to allow the other pieces that I adore to do to flourish with that strong foundation.
I love that. Yeah, I love it. And I support you 100 and bazillion% in that. That's so awesome.
Right.
And that's really awesome. So thank you so much for sharing your money love story and that manifesting piece. People talk about it so much, but I think they don't really know what it means. So I love that you shared kind of some of the specifics of that, and then also how you're changing your languaging around your business. And it is so much about our perception first. And then the unfolding of what actually happens based on our perception. So thank you for pointing that piece out. And
I would say, Kate, I would say when I noticed some people would love it to be my business, like that would make them juicy and charged up. That would get them excited. So it's really not the word my versus our. Right. What I would want to say is pay attention. If the way you talk about whatever it is related to your abundance, your money-making potential, if it feels like it's making constricted, it's the wrong direction. So for me and my personality, I'm wired for partnership. I love doing things with people, much prefer that than by myself. So I didn't realize I was doing it, but I kept thinking, my business, I have to do it. And then when I open it, so that's what to pay attention to.
That's really important. So that constriction, if it's feeling constricted, it needs some retooling. That's great. That's great. So thank you so much, Deb. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your money love story. And if those listening want to hear more money love stories, you can go to moneyalovestory.com, and you can also find out more about this book there. And when you get the book, you get free access to an online event I'm teaching called A Course in Having Enough. And I have guest experts Marianne Williamson, Barbara Stanny, and Amanda Steinberg joining me on that. So you get that for free when you buy the book. And if you want to hear more about Deb and learn more about all the beautiful things she's doing, especially her retreats and her books and things like that, go to DeborahKern.com. So moneyalovestory.com and DeborahKern.com. Thank you, Deb. I love you. No, it's not. It's drdebkern.com.
It'll work. They both work. They both work. It's all good.
It's all in the details. I love you, Deb. Thank you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.